People still tell me I was selfish. Maybe they are right. But if I could live my life again, I would make the same choice. For many years, I believed my life belonged to everyone else. I was the oldest daughter in my family. After my father died, everything changed. My mother was sad and tired. She depended on me. My younger brother was still in college. My sister had 2 little children. Every month, someone needed money. Every week, someone needed help. I never said no. I worked at a small company from Monday to Friday. After work, I often stopped by my mother's apartment. I bought food, fixed small things around the house, and listened to her worries. On weekends, I cleaned her home or watched my sister's children so she could rest. Everyone smiled when they saw me. "Thank you," they always said. "We don't know what we would do without you." Their words made me feel warm, but they also made me feel heavy. Slowly, my own life became smaller. I stopped meeting my friends. I cancelled every trip I planned. I even ended a good relationship because I never had time. One evening, my best friend Lily called me. "Do you want to have dinner?" she asked. I looked at the bags of groceries in my car. "I can't," I said with a small smile. "Maybe next time." She was quiet for a moment. "You always say that." After I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time. The parking lot was almost empty. I suddenly felt very tired, not just in my body, in my heart. That night I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me did not seem 32. There were dark circles under my eyes. My smile looked tired. I whispered to myself, "When was the last time you did something only for yourself?" I could not remember. The next morning, I opened my work email. There was a new message. A company in another city wanted to interview me. Months ago, I had sent my resume without telling anyone. It was only a dream. I never thought they would answer. A week later, I had the interview, then another one, then another. I tried not to hope too much. One Friday afternoon, my phone rang. "Congratulations," the woman said. "We would love to have you on our team." For a few seconds, I could not speak. I looked out the office window. The sky was bright. People were walking home with smiles on their faces. I should have been happy. Instead, my hands started shaking. I already knew what my family would say. "You can't leave. We need you. How can you think about yourself now?" I closed my eyes. For the first time in many years, I wanted to choose my own life. For 3 days, I told no one about the job offer. I kept reading the email again and again. The salary was better. The work was exciting. It was the opportunity I had wanted for years. Still, I felt afraid. On Sunday evening, my family gathered at my mother's apartment for dinner. My sister brought her children. My brother arrived late, as usual. The smell of chicken soup filled the room. Everyone talked and laughed. I looked around the table and wondered if everything was about to change. Finally, I took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something," I said. The room became quiet. "I got a job offer in another city." For a second, nobody spoke. Then my sister smiled. "That's great," she said. "Wait," my brother said. "Another city?" I nodded. "Yes, it's about 4 hours away." The smiles disappeared. My mother put down her spoon. "You mean you will move there?" "I think so," I said softly. The room felt colder. My brother frowned. "What about Mom?" My sister looked worried. "What about the kids? You help us all the time." I had expected these questions. Still, they hurt. "I can still visit," I said. "It won't be the same," my mother replied. Her voice was quiet, but I could hear the disappointment. Nobody asked if I liked the job. Nobody asked if I was happy. The conversation became uncomfortable. After dinner, my brother followed me into the kitchen. "I don't understand you," he said. "What do you mean?" "You know everyone depends on you." I looked at him. "That's exactly the problem." He shook his head. "So you're leaving because you're tired of helping us?" "No," I said. "I'm leaving because I want a life too." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That sounds selfish." The word hit me hard. Selfish. For days I heard it again and again. My sister said family should come first. My aunt called me and told me to think carefully. My mother cried on the phone one night. "I thought we were enough for you," she said. After that call, I sat alone in my apartment. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I should stay. I opened my laptop and stared at the email. My finger moved toward the reply button. I almost typed, "Thank you, but I must decline." Then my phone rang. It was my future manager. We talked for a few minutes about the new position. Before hanging up, she said something simple. "You worked hard for this opportunity. You earned it." After the call ended, I sat quietly. No one had said those words to me in a very long time. You earned it. The next morning, I went to the train station. My heart was pounding. At the ticket counter, I bought a one-way ticket to my new city. As the ticket printed, I knew one thing. People might never understand my decision, but for the first time in years, I had chosen myself. Moving day came faster than I expected. I packed my clothes into 2 large suitcases. I placed my books in a small box. There were not many things to take. Most of my life had never really been mine. Before leaving, I walked through my apartment one last time. The rooms were quiet. I touched the light switch near the door. I remembered all the nights when I came home late, too tired to eat or even watch TV. This place had never felt like home. It was only where I slept. I called my mother. "I'm leaving in an hour," I said. There was a long silence. "I know," she answered. "I'll stop by before I go." "You don't have to." Her words hurt more than I expected. "I still want to see you." When I arrived, she opened the door slowly. The house looked the same. The family photos were still on the wall. The flowers by the window were blooming. Everything was familiar. Everything felt different. My mother did not smile. She stood with her arms crossed. "So, this is really happening," she said. I nodded. "I'm sorry if I hurt you." She looked away. "I just wish you had chosen us." I wanted to explain. I wanted to tell her that I had chosen them for almost 10 years. But the words stayed inside me. Instead, I stepped forward. "Can I hug you?" She hesitated. Then she gently shook her head. "I don't think I can." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I forced a small smile. "I understand." When I walked back to my car, my eyes filled with tears. My brother never came. He only sent one short message. "Take care." Nothing more. I drove to the train station alone. An old neighbor, Mrs. Green, happened to see me. She helped me carry one suitcase. Before I left, she held my hand. "Don't feel guilty for living your own life," she said. "You have already given your family many beautiful years." I almost cried again. The train left just before sunset. As the city became smaller through the window, I wondered if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. When I arrived, the new city felt cold and strange. My apartment was tiny. The walls were empty. There was only one chair, one bed, and a few moving boxes. That first night, I ate instant noodles while sitting on the floor. The silence was so loud that it almost scared me. Every evening after work, I checked my phone again and again. I hoped someone would call. Most days, no one did. Some nights I lay awake and stared at the ceiling. A single question kept returning. Should I go back? Then, about 3 weeks later, something unexpected happened. My brother called. His voice sounded different. "I found a part-time job," he said. "I guess I couldn't keep depending on you forever." A few days later, my sister sent me a photo. Her husband was cooking dinner. The message was short. "He is helping more now." I realized something. Maybe my leaving had not broken my family. Maybe it had forced all of us to grow. 3 months passed. Little by little, my new city began to feel like home. I learned the fastest way to work. I found a small coffee shop near my apartment. The woman who worked there smiled every morning. "The usual?" she asked. I smiled back. "Yes, please." It was a small moment, but it made me feel that I belonged somewhere. My new job was busy. I had many things to learn. Sometimes I stayed late at the office. Sometimes I made mistakes. But every day I felt myself growing. One Friday afternoon, my manager stopped by my desk. "You did a great job on this project," she said. "We're lucky to have you." I stared at my computer after she walked away. I could not remember the last time someone praised me for my work. At home, I was always the helper. At work, I was finally becoming myself. One weekend, my mother called. Her voice sounded softer than before. "Will you come home next Saturday?" she asked. "I'd like to see you." I agreed. During the train ride home, I felt nervous. I did not know what to expect. Would everyone still be angry? Would they blame me again? When I opened my mother's front door, I noticed something strange. The house was full of laughter. My nephew was setting the table. My brother was fixing a broken chair. My sister was washing vegetables. Even my mother looked more relaxed. She smiled when she saw me. It was small, but it was real. We ate dinner together. The conversation felt easy. No one argued. No one complained. After dinner, my mother asked me to sit with her on the balcony. The evening air was cool. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she looked at me. "You look different," she said. I laughed. "In a good way or a bad way?" "In a good way." She smiled gently. "You look healthier." I looked down at my hands. "I feel happier." She nodded slowly. "I can see that." After another quiet moment, she took a deep breath. "I want to tell you something." I waited. "When you left, I was angry." "I know." "But the truth is," she said, her eyes filling with tears, "I was not only angry. I was scared. I didn't know how to live without you." Her words surprised me. She reached for my hand. "I depended on you too much." I didn't see it then. "I'm sorry." My eyes became wet. I squeezed her hand. I thought leaving meant I was abandoning everyone. She shook her head. "No. You simply gave us the chance to stand on our own." That night, as I walked back to the train station, I kept thinking about her words. For years, I believed love meant giving everything. I believed saying yes made me a good daughter. But I finally understood something important. Helping people is an act of love. Doing everything for them is not. Sometimes, when we never step away, the people we love never learn how strong they really are. And sometimes, the person who needs saving the most is ourselves. 5 years have passed since I left my hometown. Sometimes it feels like another lifetime. My life looks very different now. I still work at the same company. Last year I became a team leader. The first time I saw my name on the office door, I smiled for a long time. It was not because of the title. It was because I finally believed in myself. Outside of work, my life became full again. I started hiking on weekends. I joined a book club. I made new friends. One rainy afternoon, I met Daniel at a coffee shop. He noticed the novel in my hands. "I love that writer," he said with a smile. That simple conversation became dinner. Dinner became many weekends together. 2 years later, we got married. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had stayed. Maybe I would never have met him. Maybe I would still be telling myself, maybe next time. My family changed too. My brother finished college and found a full-time job. He even bought a small apartment. One evening, he called me. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I thought you were leaving us." He laughed softly. "But now I know you were teaching us to stand on our own." I should have thanked you instead. My sister also became more confident. She and her husband learned to share the work at home. Now they laughed more than they argued. Even my mother found a new life. She joined a painting class at the community center. Her small apartment slowly filled with colorful pictures. Every time I visited, she showed me her newest painting with the excitement of a child. One summer afternoon, our whole family gathered for my niece's birthday. The backyard was full of balloons and happy voices. As we watched the children play, my niece sat beside me. "Aunt," she asked, "why did you move so far away?" I looked at her bright eyes and smiled. When I was younger, I thought loving my family meant saying yes to everything. She listened carefully. But one day I learned something important. "What was it?" she asked. "Loving yourself does not mean you love your family less. It simply means you stop forgetting that your life matters too." She nodded, even though I was not sure she fully understood. Maybe one day she would. That evening, as I drove home with Daniel, I looked at the sunset through the car window. My phone rang. It was my mother. "Drive safely," she said, "and don't forget to visit next month." "I won't," I replied. "I love you." "I love you too," she answered. There was no guilt in her voice. There was no fear in mine. Only love. People still tell me that leaving was a selfish decision. I no longer argue with them. They only saw the day I walked away. They never saw everything that happened after. Sometimes the most selfish choice is not the one that hurts people. Sometimes it is the one that helps everyone grow. And sometimes the life you save by choosing yourself is your own.